14. A campaign of hate. Christmas lunch was filled with excitement. Actually, before we had left home, Gwen had called me with an unusual request. Adrian had pointed out to her that with Michael joining our group, he would be the only one who would not have a gift under the Christmas tree. Adrian had proposed that he would like to give the gift he had gotten for me to Michael instead, and wanted to know if I would be comfortable with that. Gwen had even expressed her surprise that Adrian would come up with such a proposition. Her, the boy only thinks about himself and his stomach. I decided to alert Michael about this gift-giving tradition, and since he was so grateful to Adrian, I proposed that the gift he had brought for me should instead be addressed to Adrian. I was sure that I would have a gift from Gwen under the tree, and actually, I had completely forgotten to get one for her brother. Having settled that little adjustment, we went straight to Gwen's home. Everyone was choosing their seats around the extended Christmas dining table, which was adorned with all sorts of food. I mean, Mom Peters had overdone herself this time, making up for what I had missed at Thanksgiving, maybe. In the middle of the eating and merrymaking, Mom Peters came out with a barrage of questions directed at poor Michael. So Michael, why are you here? I mean, how come you're not spending Christmas with your mom? I hope you remembered to call her this morning to wish her a Merry Christmas. We moms love to hear from our kids, even if they are not spending the day with us. Wait a minute. Where did this barrage of questions come from? And why was Mom directing it all at poor little Michael? I could see all of my convincing him to come unraveling right in front of my very eyes, and it really was. There was a silence that overtook the table as everyone was awaiting a response from Michael. I looked over just in time to see his chin sink down to his chest and his hands coming up to cover his face. Oh my God, something is wrong, Michael, I snapped. Just at that time, he had started to withdraw from the table, and Adrian, who was sitting next to him, also got up. I sprang to my feet, and sitting on the opposite side, I started to race around Mom, who was at one end of the table. Gwen's father was at the other end. Immediately, Adrian waved me off as he followed Michael away from the dining table into the living room. Returning immediately to the dinner table, partly in shock and in confusion, I began to ponder this situation. Why would Gwen's mom suddenly take this line of questioning? I know how protective mothers tend to be about who their daughters may marry, especially if that mother is struggling to keep the things in her own marriage flowing. In the event of an unbearable marriage, mothers are hell-bent on preventing their daughters from repeating their own mistakes. But Mrs. Peters was happily married. It had to be Michael's presence with me for Christmas that must be posing the question mark. Maybe she thought that Michael and I were having an affair, and she was trying to prevent her daughter from getting in too deep with a man who may turn out to be bisexual. I had to step up to the plate and dispel that notion as quickly as possible. Breaking the silence, I interjected. I guess I should take this opportunity to explain how Michael happened to be spending Christmas in my place. Michael did not come to spend Christmas with me. You guys would remember the headlines of a preacher being arrested by the FBI in his pulpit. Well, that scandal was in Michael's church in Dayton, and the deacon that rescued the situation on that fateful day was none other than Michael's stepdad. They were audible gasps of astonishment as I captured their attention. Then I proceeded to explain how that arrest incident had spawned a fierce fight of pastoral succession in the church, with some of the older deacons accusing Michael's stepdad of setting up the entire thing just to take over the church. Someone had gotten the information that the FBI had gone up to Oberlin College to interview Michael Coghill, and they assumed that was when the conspiracy was hatched for this event to happen. They were trying to remove any suggestion of coincidence that the FBI arrest happened just when his stepdad was the deacon for that service. The sad thing was that Michael's mom did not know that the FBI had talked with Michael, and soon accepted the conspiracy that it was Michael who had set up the entire debacle. As I continued, consequently, his mother had informed him just before Christmas that her husband and her considered him a traitor and that he was not welcomed in their house for Christmas. But that was not all. I painted a picture of poor Michael stranded in the home of one of his teammates, knowing that he had to get out of there before Christmas and trying to decide where to go. He hatched up this plan to come and house sit my apartment, assuming that I would be spending Christmas with my family in Dayton. When I told him that I was not going to Dayton but staying here in Oxford, he suddenly became very silent on the phone. I had no choice but to tell him, "Look, Michael, if you need a place to stay for Christmas, you're always welcome to stay here." And that's how he turned up at my place on Christmas Eve. Just about that time, Michael and Adrian reappeared at the table. Adrian had his hands around Michael's shoulders, and it was obvious that the latter had been crying. Quietly, he said, "Mr. and Mrs. Peters, I'm very sorry for causing you all of that trouble. If you would forgive me and allow me to come back to your table, I would be most grateful for your compassion." That moved everyone. Ben's dad shouted, "Sit down, lad. Eric has already explained your sad story." But Ben's mom, not to be outdone, blurted out, "Not so fast. Not until you give this big fat mama a Christmas hug." I think that was the first time that Michael really felt the Christmas welcome. He rushed over to her and hugged her, saying, "Sure, mama, anytime." Now, he was a little taller than she was, so he had to bend down a little to place his head fully on her shoulder. You could see it was pure love. She had provided the icebreaker that made the day. We were all back to being festive again. Gwen had muttered to me under her breath that she cannot take any more of this drama. I responded by suggesting that she think of it all as the movies coming to dinner. That sparked a kick under the table and a smile on her face. Oh, she just knew how to make me love her more and more. Can't help myself. Drinks and dessert were being passed around, only to be disrupted by a steady buzzing on Michael's phone. He kept picking it up and turning it over in a deliberate attempt to kill the messages. Adrian leaned over to him and said something, which caused him to give the phone to Adrian. "Holy shit! Who are these people?" Everyone looked over to Adrian with utter disbelief at his outburst. Michael is getting a series of hate messages on his phone. "Give me that phone," I demanded. I started to scroll through the messages, calling him a traitor, a Jezebel, a disgrace to the deacon and his mother, etc. This had to be orchestrated by the deacon. How else could so many persons have gotten his phone number? Michael just sat there and coolly said, "Ignore it. I am happy here with my big brother, his girlfriend, and her family. That is all that matters to me right now." I removed the battery and kept the phone. Let us see what Father Christmas has brought us all, folks, said Mom, ushering us away from her table. As Gwen and her mother cleared the table, the rest of us made it into the living room. Michael wanted to use the bathroom, and Adrian kindly offered him to use the one in his room. When everyone had gathered in the living room for the gift opening tradition, Gwen could not help but observe that Michael had come over and sat on the floor right next to me on the sofa. He was practically leaning on my right foot. It was a joyful event. Everyone received a gift. Michael and Adrian exchanged gifts, and that was a touching moment, although they both had the same gift idea: a sweater with the respective university names emblazoned on the front. The only difference was that Adrian's gift for Michael was a little too big for him, but then it was intended for me. Michael and I returned back to the apartment, eagerly seeking some sleep time. Adrian had promised to take Michael out on the town that evening. At first, he was starting to become very apologetic about his behavior. He wanted to know if I was upset or embarrassed by him. I cut him short by saying, "If you knew how much I loved you, little brother, you wouldn't be thinking like that." Then he changed the subject. "Do you know anything about Adrian? What type of guy is he?" "I don't know. He's a freshman. Actually, this must have been the second time that I have ever met him. Why do you ask?" "Well, is he gay?" "Wait a minute, Michael. The guy explains the Mass to you, and you thought that he was studying to become a priest. Now the guy comforts you in your time of crisis, and now you think he must be gay? Come on, Michael, get real." "Bro, I'm only going on the facts as I see them." "What facts?" "Well, we already kissed each other twice for the day." "What?" I could only express my shock at this news. Remember when we first went into the living room? I was sitting on the floor crying and telling him that I didn't think that his mom wanted me to be at her Christmas lunch. He kept pleading with me that everyone liked me, and then he tried to kiss me on my forehead just as I raised my head, and his lips landed on my nose. We both laughed, and I said, "Do you want to try that again?" This time, he just went straight to my lips and kissed me. Then, when I had used the bathroom in his room, just before he opened the door to let us both out, he kissed me again, but this time longer. I just feel that he's going to take me to some gay bar in Oxford tonight. I didn't know they had that in this town. Michael, just be careful. That was all I could muster to say. Don't start anything that will cause you trouble later on. His response was very quick. I just wanted you not to say anything that would cause your girlfriend's brother trouble later on. I got what he meant.